So we're all set.
You did that? Okay.
I'm sorry, we didn't do roll call. We're live on YouTube.
Okay, we're live now. All right, Dave Mayo,
Here.
Bob Beston, Norma Chapman, George Langdon,
Here.
Vicky Plotsky.
Hello.
Hi, Bill Reinhardt,
Here.
Jennifer Whalen, Ally McLean Lane.
Here.
Sweet. Let me see if we have a couple other participants. Bill Ricard, Matt Miller. It says Norma Chapman's here, so I don't know about that. Andrew Joyce is here. I think that's all the legislators, but if I'm sorry if I missed you, Wanda, Willingham, Sam Fine, Carolyn McLaughlin. I think that's all.
And Legislator Grimm
And Legislator Grimm
and Pete Tunney
and Pete Tunney. Welcome. If it's okay with you, we'd like to look at the minutes from the last time, which were quite brief.
Barbara, can you please give me a charger?
Take a moment.
No, no.
Did everybody have a chance to read the minutes?
Make a motion to accept.
Anybody want to unmute themselves and make a motion? Ally?
I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Dave's going to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Sweet. The minutes are passed. I did have one thing. We did, Bill, did you get your answers to your, oh, he's on the phone. We did have some questions last time left over that we're going to get the answers to, which I did not receive. So I was wondering if that was happening. Anybody know anything about that? There was a couple questions for Phil from Bill Reinhardt. Well, when he's done with what he's doing, we'll get back to him. In the meanwhile, we're going to go out of order if that's okay. We have Carm Bazile tonight from CDTA, and he's going to make a presentation on what's new and going on over there for approximately maybe 10 to 15 minutes. And we will maybe have a little time to ask him some questions before we go on to the rest of our agenda. Does that work for everybody? Carm, I saw you a minute ago. Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, sweet. Take it away.
Thank you, Lynn. Hi, everyone. Lots of familiar faces. That probably means I've been doing this for a long time. But thanks for inviting me to give you an update on what's going on here at CDTA. Probably to tell you a little bit about how we've handled ourselves during the pandemic. Probably, I'm sure our stories are very similar to yours, but it's, I guess, always good and comforting to hear someone else's side, and to talk about, the request from Legislator Fine, which I found interesting. It's how people are rallying around the need for more mobility options, more choices. What exactly is the right choice? Not sure, but we're encouraged to see people realize that cars are not our future, or at least the way we've sort of thought about automobile traffic over the last 50 years, and how we address, I think, the next 50 years moving forward is going to be critically important. And here at CDTA, what we're focusing on is many more choices. And to make our services as convenient as possible. And what you may find interesting is that at least a third of our ridership right now rides for free. And we could talk a little bit about that as we go here. Our staff put together a very short PowerPoint and they did it to sort of keep me organized so that I don't just bounce all over the place. And I don't want to waste your valuable time. And, you've got me blocked into 10 or 15 minutes, and without a PowerPoint, I may end up you may just hit the cut switch, but I don't know here how we get the PowerPoint up. I think your folks are controlling it.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever that is, could you throw up a slide or try to? If not, I'll go without the slides, doesn't matter.
I think we're having technical difficulties right now, but we'll get it up as soon as we can.
Boy, isn't that sort of the common theme lately we're, we're having technical difficulties. Everyone talks about how easy this technology is to use, and it is. It's been a game changer, but man, lots of technical difficulties. I'll just start quickly with COVID and our response to COVID. Like everybody else, we're having a tough time. As of like right this minute, I think 76 people on our payroll have tested positive. 2/3 of those in the last 2 months. It's been a struggle. It's been a struggle to match our resources to demand. There are some days where we frankly don't have enough people and to match up with the buses that we need to get out. But in general, our workforce, our frontline workforce has done a phenomenal job. They haven't taken a day off. We've managed through the pandemic. Ridership has been sort of an up and down. We sunk very, very quickly in early April, a year ago. And then interestingly enough, we already have piloted free fare. So we were free for 4 months. When we went free fare and went to rear door boarding, and that really was to protect our bus operators.
Okay, I got it, Pat. Thank you.
Could put barriers up. Ridership spiked up. But it was interesting as to how what that ridership was. It was trips with, the best we could determine, without a purpose. It was just sort of these 1 block trips, 2 block trips. So that's a little bit of information that we got to get a little bit smarter on as we consider these options like free fare and things of that nature. But our cleaning program is completely different today than it was a year ago. It is really a disinfecting system as much as it is a cleaning system. You may have read in the Times Union the other day that we've installed top of the line purification systems on our buses. So they tell me it's operating room technology. Not sure I'm ready to buy into that, but the disinfecting process on our buses is now not totally automated, but pretty much automated, which frees up. We had devoted about a dozen of our cleaners to disinfecting. So we're now able to move them back to, cleaning vehicles rather than disinfecting them. And on, the story goes. On the vaccination side, 2 sides of that. I checked today before the Zoom call. Hey, there it is. We're up to about 350 people vaccinated. That's around half of our workforce. And we're getting to the point now, we've got about 100 more in the queue. And I got to tell you, one of our biggest and strongest partners has been Albany County. We have an arrangement where we're getting access to the clinics because we're in 1B. So all of our people are eligible. And between Albany County and Schenectady County, we're able to get that number of people vaccinated. And I think we have about 100 more scheduled over the next week or so. But we're fast coming to that part of the workforce, and I'm sure you're all familiar with this, who are a little leery and they're not sure. We need to get those 200 or 300 people vaccinated to ensure that the workplace is safe. So we're doing a lot of one-on-ones with people to get them to understand. We're part of the Albany Medical Center regional task force, and we're working with the task force and their educational components to get our people to understand how important it is for them to get vaccinated. You all know this, it's not an easy task. The first 200 or 300 were easy. The last 200 or 300 are going to be really, really tough. As far as projects that we've kind of knocked off here in the last 6 months, you may know about our bus rapid transit program. The red line operates up and down Route 5. You see that there's a beautiful station right outside of the county office building, one of our busiest stations. We just started the second line, which goes north-south between Albany and Troy. That's the blue line. And last but not least, fully funded, I can tell you right now by the federal government, is the purple line. That'll operate up Washington and Western Avenues through the Harriman campus and in through to SUNY. That'll be an exclusive busway. Only buses and emergency vehicles will be allowed on that. So we're really anxious to get that going. And there's the map. And if it looks like a subway map, that's intentional because bus rapid transit is really rail on wheels. So we've made a significant investment in that program. When we're done, when all 3 lines are operational, that's about 40 miles of bus rapid transit. And we're really, really anxious to come out of the pandemic and get that rolling smoothly. You may also have heard about I call it dipping our toe in the water of electric buses. We have 4 of them on the property. They've been on the property for almost a year now. And we just actually today, our board approved an order of 4 more. Operationally, phenomenal. Drivers love them. The range issues are, I'd call them somewhat problematic, but not insurmountable. And you hear about that all the time about range. The real issue for us is relatively old facilities and incorporating the required infrastructure to charge them. They're not like a Chevy Bolt. I mean, you don't just plug them in. There's, frankly, we had to invest about $3 million in our building to get it ready to charge 4 buses. And the chargers that we installed are only have the capacity to do 8 buses. So at some point, we're going to have to make some facility decisions in order to, if we want to be fully electric, or even a quarter electric, which is the governor's mandate that we shoot at a quarter of our fleet to be electric. So the technology itself we're finding is very mature. The range issue, which is really the topic that most people talk about, we're finding, at least in our system, well within our range and not insurmountable at all. So I'd give it a B+ right now. The delta, the price delta is still way out of whack. A regular conventional 40-foot bus is about $450,000. A 40-foot electric powered bus is $900,000. So it's double the cost. So, we're always searching for capital money to move that technology forward. But that's a quick update on that. I'm sure you've seen our bikes around, CDPHP Cycle. We've I guess, no, I'm not going to be bashful here. We sold the naming rights to our friends at CDPHP. That's CDTA's program, though. We've got about 500 bikes. Right now, they're in their winter home. I'll let you in on the secret. The winter home, they live underneath the Albany Public Library on Washington Avenue. So they're in their winter home till April. They'll reappear. And we're going to bring out more of them, more technology that's integrated with them. And we've developed a lot of partnership programs. We've got partners like UAlbany. UAlbany's replaced their bike share program with ours. A lot of major employers are offering bike rides to their employees free of charge. So that, keep that in mind here, that there are more ways than just us making it free. Employers, we've got 25 partners right now, colleges and employers who partner with us and make the service free for their employees. Something tells me that that's a good thing to get responsible employers to step up and make transportation via CDTA free to their employees, because after all, many employers provide free parking for their employees, which frankly on a monthly basis is much more expensive than offering free service to us. So CDPHP Cycle, alive and well and doing quite nicely for CDTA. A new program that you may or may not know about is something we call Flex. Flex are smaller vehicles that uses the same technology that ride sharing uses. So it's on your device, your handheld device, your computer, you can make a reservation for Flex to pick you up and bring you to where you want to go. The vehicles are small and resemble, sort of Uber and Lyft vans. So what we're doing is putting the CDTA name and the CDTA brand behind something that's much more like ride sharing. This operates in geographic zones. It's geo-fenced. Right now, the zone is Latham, Guilderland, Colony. The second zone that we'll introduce in a few months is southern Saratoga County. And then we're going to follow it up with the city of Saratoga. And then the Rensselaer Rail Station, which some of you may know, we own and operate. And for years, the taxi service and the ability to move back and forth across the river, those short trips from the rail station to the Capitol, to the county office building, or wherever people are doing business, has been problematic. We're going to use Flex, our own product, to sort of replace all these various forms of transportation. So honestly, Flex is probably the product that will become the emerging product in the next 5 years, because it's what people want, much more flexibility, much more door-to-door service. Our core business will always be big buses operating up and down the main roads, but I think you're going to see Flex become sort of the complementary service that allows us to get to people in a different sort of way, to serve areas that aren't as densely populated, and frankly, to attract people who might not otherwise be attracted to public transportation. So keep Flex in mind. I think you're going to hear and see more about it. During the year, much to my surprise, just before the pandemic, we had started a strategic planning process. What do we want to be over the next 3 to 5 years? Somehow, some way, we kept it going and got it done just a few months ago. Had some consultant help, but had a committed board of directors and a bunch of staff people who said we can get this done. That's our new mission statement. It's a little different than maybe what you're used to seeing. The key words are mobility, connection, and communities. That's what we think we are. We're the entity that connects communities, and we like to tie in that to economic prosperity. I think the last slide.
Oh,
that might
excellent.
be it. No, more mobility. So what do we mean by that? I think within 2 years, you're going to see buses. You're going to see bikes. Little preview here. We have an arrangement to bring scooters to the capital region for a pilot, a test. We have a limited supply of scooters ready to be delivered this spring. Lots of technology that allows them to be tightly geocoded. So we're working on where those areas should be, where we can pilot scooters. I know that you either love them or hate them. But if you go to most major metropolitan areas, people love scooters. We think we can make them a little bit more manageable and not have them thrown on every corner of Albany, Troy, Schenectady, or wherever it might be, and manage that a little bit better. And then last but not least, some of you may know of Capital Car Share. It operated in a small area adjacent to Lark Street, about 6 or 7 cars, kind of a secret program. I mean, not a lot of people knew about it. They weren't able to continue financially and from a management perspective. So we have acquired the resources, so to speak, the technology, the cars, and we're looking to resurface a car share program and then merge all these programs together so that our customers can use car share, bikes, scooters, and whatever else we have in our offering or in our sort of our mobility menu. So that's what we envision the system to look like moving forward. Lots of options, lots of opportunity, and how it's paid for. Whether it be fare free, employer subsidized, up for discussion. But we think we're poised to come back strong.
Carm, thank you very much. And we are unfortunately out of time. Would you be willing to answer questions or come back again or something like that in writing or questions?
Absolutely, Lynn, sure.
That'd be okay with folks since we are running out of time. I have one more thing on the agenda to.
Sorry I went long.
It's okay. We were a little late starting too, my fault. Mea culpa.
Well, thanks for having me. I'll come back anytime. I'm just up the street.
All right, sweet. Why don't we plan on that then?
Okay.
And in the meanwhile, if anybody has any pressing questions, you can.
Can we get copies of the slides?
You sure
Yes.
can.
I'd like that.
All
Actually,
right,
you
sweet.
probably have them down there, right? I mean, but I can
We have
see
them.
again.
Can we circulate them? No problem.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
See you
Carm.
again soon.
Thank you.
All right. What do we have here? We'll go to number 2. Oh, do you want to just do number 3 first, and then we'll do number 2? So it's 21 LLC Local Law C for 2021, a local law establishing a demonstration program imposing owner liability for failure of an operator to stop for a school bus displaying a red visual signal and stop arm. I believe that Baroro is the head, the lead sponsor. Baroro, did you want to say anything?
Oh, you're muted.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So it's very important. This local law is very important because, you know, a lot of times these school buses, they stop for kids to cross the road and people want to just speed. I don't know why people are so much in a hurry, but they want to speed up and just pass the buses and putting the lives of the kids at risk. So I think this is very important, and I would like to move it forward for public hearing.
There was a question about funding, and I know Pat was prepared to give a little sentence or two about that. Is that okay with you, Baroro?
Yes, I would
Okay.
yield to Pat.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way the state law is written is it'll allow for this would be a tremendous burden on the school districts. So the state law allows municipalities to enter into agreements with school districts to pay for the cameras. The way it will ultimately play out is the county will contract with a third party to maintain and operate the cameras. They will purchase the cameras as well. And we'll go forward, and the revenues received from the fines will pay the third party. So there won't be any fiscal impact on the actual county of Albany. It should be budget neutral. If at all, there'll actually be a slight revenue to the county. But I wouldn't start spending that because it's not going to be dramatic. But right now, for your knowledge, there won't be a fiscal impact on the county.
Madam Chair, this is Luke Rogers. I can just second that. And first of all, I want to take a second to thank the legislature for taking this up. You know, when this law passed in 2019, the county executive quickly got to work and asked the county attorney to begin drafting a local law. And it was a priority last year, and happy that it's moving forward. In terms of the fiscal impact, Pat's exactly right. The RFP that have been used in other counties explicitly stated that it would seek a turnkey operation that was provided at no cost to the county. So obviously the catch, if you want to call it that, is yes, they get a percentage of the revenue. That's the way this kind of works. But the priority here is safety. And so as Pat kind of alluded to, all revenue is good revenue, but revenue is not the priority of this initiative. It's the safety. You know, there's an estimated 50,000 passed school buses a day in New York State. So you can kind of extrapolate how many that means for Albany County, but it's a significant issue.
Thanks, Luke. Any other questions? George?
Two things.
George, Sorry.
Sorry, two things. I was concerned about the cost because the one section actually said it's going to be borne by the county. So I appreciate the explanation on that. The other thing, as I read this, why are we only fining $250 for this kind of thing? I
That's in the state
this
law.
is a pretty blatant disregard to people, and I think that fine could be quite a bit stiffer, personally.
Yeah, as Pat said, it's prescribed by the state law, unfortunately.
Okay.
So whether we wanted to do 100 or 500, we really don't have a choice. It's set in the 2019 state law.
Then I have a
Okay,
question.
I had Ally ahead of you, Dave. if that's
Okay, all right. No, that's fine.
Ally?
Thank you very much for recognizing me. How many children have been hit by a car in Albany County due to this?
I do not have an answer to that question.
Too many?
Yeah, I would say one is too many.
Well, one is too many. I mean, I understand that. I'm just wondering.
I'm trying to think of how to even collect that data. I could certainly reach out to law enforcement.
I would assume that the companies that want this business would have collected that data. I was involved at the state level with, seeing this legislation, having this legislation being lobbied, et cetera. So it would be great to know. I mean, or unless the school districts have collected this information, but I would assume that the companies who want this business, usually unless there is a financial component for them, they're not interested. And so I would love to just find out how many. Maybe we'll find out at the public hearing, but I would be curious to know.
Yeah, happy to explore that. I mean, it's obviously the business model, big picture. In the best case, these companies' work is putting themselves out of business because you want to reduce these to as little as possible. Obviously, in reality, that's not going to happen overnight. And I wouldn't be naive to think there isn't a financial compensation to these companies to make this happen. But that's
well, I would assume they would have tracked it just because, they want the business. That's all. I'm just talking about it as not as a negative, just talking about it as they've got a vested interest. So they, in all likelihood, probably
I
this
can look into
information
it.
and might have it just as a place to go get it.
My guess is they'll have state level data. I don't know that they'll have drilled down to the county level, but I can inquire.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Len, you're muted.
Am I up?
All right, Dave.
Go ahead, Dave.
All right, thanks, Lynn. Along the same lines, what is the third-party vendor getting paid on this? Is it a percentage of what's collected?
Exactly.
Do you know what the percentage is, though, Lucas?
It's obviously negotiated following the RFP. I can say that throughout other instances where this has been implemented in the state, it's been between 40 and 60%, which sounds like a lot, but if you think about they're providing the full suite of services, including the upfront capital cost, the data management, the processing, the payment of fines. So, that means the county is still getting 30 to 40%, which is a positive. But again, to reiterate, the safety is really the main driver.
Okay, but the county definitely will not be out of pocket on this? Is that?
Right, that's the way we would structure the RFP, to clearly stipulate that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Norma, did you have your hand up?
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Anybody else? Matt?
Lynn, just real quick. Yeah, just to Allison's point, I think it's a little less about how many actually have been hit. It's about how many we can prevent from being hit. I think less kids are hit than people would believe because the bus drivers do such a tremendous job trying to protect the students getting on and off the bus. It's about stopping that dangerous behavior so we don't have any kids getting hit. So I think that's more, I think we do have some of those numbers I can get for Allison, but again, it's more about that protecting them from actually getting hit.
All righty. Bill Reinhardt.
Yeah, two questions. One is, are there any data privacy issues? I noted in the language of the bill, they talked about how the cameras are to not identify personal information inside the vehicle. However, if any of that is identified, that's not to prevent the information from being used in court to prosecute the bad actor. So it sounded to me like there might be some privacy issues that we should kind of be aware of. And I'm also thinking in terms of controlling where any of the data goes from that is collected by our third party. But then the other question I have, which might be the more significant one, is it read to me that this would only apply on county roads. And that,
so, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I can see scenarios in the city of Albany where there may be no county roads that a bus goes on. I can see a scenario in Bethlehem where you're going to have state roads and county roads and local roads. And then in some rural areas, it might all be county roads. But
I can clarify that. So that provision, that there is a sentence that reads that way, that applies specifically to if we wanted to install a standing in place camera. So not attached to the bus arm, but say next to a school, for example. That's really not our intent. Maybe there's other municipalities that have done that. We would use, a preferred route would just be on the school bus itself as opposed to a fixed camera.
Okay, so then that would then get around this issue that the cameras would be operating regardless of who owned the road.
Correct.
Yeah, it's the jurisdiction of the county, meaning our geographical jurisdiction. I also want to note to your prior question, the state law spells out the privacy concerns, and the RFP will require the vendor to comply with those provisions of the state law.
Okay, all right, good.
Thanks.
I have Mr. Grimm. I'd like you to know that Jennifer Whalen has joined us.
Hi, sorry I'm late. Hi, everyone.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm still clear on the financing because the school districts will pay nothing according to what you've said. So the county's responsible, but isn't a lot of the upfront money to buy the cameras and install them? Is that the county pays for that, or there's the vendor in place before that?
The vendor pays, the vendor is in place before that, and the vendor is responsible for the capital purchase and the installation.
So would the county get money from the vendor for some of this? And if so, why? Because the county's not spending any money based on what you're describing.
The county will likely get some money. It's, why does the municipality get money for any kind of traffic violation? It's probably a bigger question.
Yeah, well, that's another question, by the way. This will add to the court costs, of course.
Yeah, and there's a 10% carve out
in town and city courts.
Yeah, there's a 10% carve out in the law of revenue that goes to reimburse the courts for their additional burden. These tickets are not overly complex, so we don't anticipate it being a huge burden. But there is that, I think they contemplated that when they passed the law at the state level and included that language. Why does the county get revenue? I can't answer that entirely. But.
So because they're not extending they're not spending any revenue, but they do have a clear possibility of getting revenue. So from a revenue standpoint, it's a positive thing for the county. Not to mention the fact that one bus driver told me there's somebody runs a stop sign on him every day he's out there, which that blows my mind. That blows my mind.
It's the stat that they kind of did a pilot test on the data, and they said each bus per day is passed on average about 2.3 times. So, you multiply that by however many buses we have in the county, and you're in the multiple hundreds per day. And those are estimates, but based on a pretty good study.
So Luke, there's going to be a lot of video. In fact, we know from police enforcement now, all these body cameras, the video is astronomical, the amount of it. How will they convert all this video to, court proceedings? Who manages that?
Primarily the entity itself. The third I agree. I agree. The vendor themselves.
Yeah.
They have that capability. That's the best I can say. They have demonstrated it elsewhere. There might be a limited role for law enforcement review, but it would be highly targeted just to make sure that things are happening the way that they are supposed to be happening. But that is, how others have done it, and how we would structure the RFP is to have that also fall on the responsibility of the selected vendor.
Because they're going to have to go to a ton of video every day. It's going to be a huge amount. They're going to say, well, I got to find on bus 12, this guy went by at 11:02. That is.
Yeah, it's fair point. I think the RFP process, we'll certainly learn a lot about how exactly they manage that responsibility.
All right, folks. Did I see somebody else's finger up?
I just wanted to clarify to Mr. Grimm's question. The camera, when the red light on the stop arm is activated, the red flashing lights on the stop arm, a vehicle that passes at that point, it triggers, it flags. And so they know that at that particular moment, there is a violation. And so that video is
so the only video, Pete, is when the
lights, yeah,
okay.
When the lights are flashing, correct.
Thank you.
I bet it's likely they provide the picture when they send your ticket to you.
Yeah.
By the way, here you are. Just looking at parking tickets now.
Guilty.
I'm sorry, Bill, do you have your hand up? And then we have to think
Yeah.
about moving on.
Yes, yes. As a follow-up to something that Mark brought up, the issue of the town courts. Is there any carve out of revenue for either the school districts who might have, let's say, some additional maintenance on their buses as a result of this technology, or the towns for the court expenses? Does any revenue from this program go to either of those entities, the school districts or the towns?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there is a 10% carve out for the local municipalities, for the courts. School buses, it's a good point. That's not written into the law in terms of the schools themselves. The idea, the law is explicitly written to not allow any financial burden to be put on the schools. But I think that will be a conversation with the school districts and the vendor in terms of what's the most efficient way to do this.
Okay.
The vendor would have to fix the cameras, not the school district, right?
Yeah, but I get what I think, if there's an associate, you need the time set aside for the vendor to come in and do the installation. There could be some small burden that would just have to be accounted for through the process as we develop individual agreements with interested school districts.
Lynn, I know you need to move on, but if I could just real quickly just tell them, one of the biggest vendors out there is got from Pat is Bus Patrol. So if you're interested, just go to this buspatrol.com and you can see sort of how answer some of those questions for you.
Sweet. Thank you. All right. If we're all done with our questions, it's time to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. We're on item number 3. This is the
We
local law
are.
itself, not the public hearing.
Does it matter to you which one we do first?
The local law, my understanding is going to be tabled at the request of the sponsor pending the public hearing.
Okay, so then we'll go to number 2 then, which is the public hearing for local law C. And will you continue your motion, Mr. Langdon, for that one?
Yes, I will.
Sure. So we need a second.
I'll second.
And who was that? Bill
Reinhardt.
Reinhardt seconds. Ally has a question in the chat. Somebody should take a note of. I believe they disappear when we close. So all in favor?
Aye.
We're going to
Aye.
public hearing. Okay. None, any opposed? Motion passes. So then we'll table number 3, which is local law C. So we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Ally?
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Jennifer and Allison, second.